Good morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Ford, and I am the Director of Public Policy and Advocacy for the ARC of Texas, and your presiding officer for the Advisory Council on Postsecondary Education for Persons with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. It is 10:20 a.m., and I would like to call the July 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Advisory Council for Postsecondary Education for Persons with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities to order. This meeting is obviously being held via Zoom. Before we begin, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome those that have joined via teleconference. Please be aware that although we are meeting via Zoom, this meeting is still being broadcast via the internet, and this meeting is also being recorded. I am participating via Zoom today because I am in quarantine due to my husband currently having COVID, so I am unable to be physically present at the coordinating board. So I appreciate their flexibility in letting me continue to preside over this meeting via Zoom. Obviously, Waylon is present at the Higher Education Coordinating Board to preside over the public meeting. Per the welcome screen in front of you, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. You must keep your video on when speaking or when voting so that we are in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. First off, the Higher Coordinating Board staff will establish a quorum through roll call. Each member should identify themselves prior to speaking for the record. And please just wait for one person to finish before speaking. Otherwise, comments can be muddled or unclear. And so if you have any issues with Zoom during this meeting today, please chat or sort of raise your hand to a member of the coordinating board staff, and they will help you as they can. So all guests will be muted unless they are recognized by me, and then they must be unmuted and have their video on to speak.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience again. I'd like to start off with a roll call. Just please announce yourself and say here or present when I say your name. Brenda Barrio.
Here.
Thank you. Sandy Cox.
Here.
Taylor Fiddler. Ashley Ford.
Present.
Elizabeth Fuller. Tracy Glass. Tiffany Grady.
Here. Tracy Glass is here.
Oh, okay, thank you, Tracy. Tiffany Grady.
Tiffany was not able to make it. She's having
Okay.
computer problems. Yeah.
Thank you. Jennifer Hines. Linda Litzinger.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Vicki Mitchell.
Here.
Susan Maraska.
Here.
Thank you. Ramonda Alaloy. Christine Price.
Here.
DJ Puente. Jolene Sanders. Beth Stalvey.
Here.
Agatha Thibodeau.
Here.
Tara Torres. And Nina Zuna. All right. I wanted to make sure we had quorum. So please record in the minutes that we have quorum. And at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to our presiding officer, Ashley Ford. Thank you.
Thank you, Galen. Tracy, I'm glad that you're with us this morning. I was going to ask if Dr. Eric Roberts would be joining us, or if that transition was still going to occur.
Actually, I never received a reply back saying that it was okay for him to join us, so I didn't end up inviting him. But I do believe that it would be great if he could. He's very interested in the work that we do here. And so if it's okay, I'd like to start inviting him because he's very interested in coming. And I don't know
the answer to that question, but I bet Waylon does.
Yes, Tracy, that's fine. You can definitely invite him to participate. And I think that's anyone, if anyone has someone they want to bring on as a special guest, they're more than welcome to. Just let us know. And if anybody else, like just visitors per se, send them to the online link for them to just watch. But if you have someone that want to chime in, speak with you on a certain topic or anything, they're more than welcome to provide that feedback and join us.
Thank you. Yeah, he's now our director over our post-secondary programs. We've had some structural changes in the center, and we now have Aggie Achieve is now falling under the center umbrella. And so we now have two post-secondary, both post-secondary programs under the center umbrella. So Dr. Roberts is now the director over the post-secondary programs at A&M. And I will be moving more into just doing the coordinating piece. For the longest time, I've done the directing and the coordinating. And since we've changed to a 2-year program, it's just becoming too much. And so I'm giving up one of those jobs and I chose to give up the directing job. So I'll be stepping down as director. However, I will keep the the coordinating piece and the development piece, which are my passion. And so I've been blessed for them to allow me to be able to keep those pieces. And then we have a new director that will be coming on board. Her name is Leticia Lasota, and she's going to be joining us, I think, August 15th. And so she may be one that would also be very interested in, joining this group as well in the work that we do. So if we've got some changes going on, so if it's okay that those two folks join us, I think it would really add a lot of value.
I also wanted to note for the members that Jennifer Hines, who was our vocational rehabilitation representative, has taken a position with St. Edward's University, and so will no longer be on the advisory council as a VR representative. I do see that a Laura Villarreal with TWC initials next to her name is on. So Laura, are you our new VR representative?
Yes, I am, Ashley. She forwarded me all of her council commitments. So I didn't want to just kind of crash today's meeting, but I didn't want to miss it either. So it's so good to see you, Tracy. And Agatha, there's so many familiar faces, Vicki.
You too, welcome aboard. It's good to see you again.
And Laura, for those of us who don't know you, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm just wondering if you can kind of tell us what your role is at Texas Workforce Commission. Obviously, Jennifer Hines was such a valued member of our council. And so we really appreciate the knowledge and expertise that the VR representative brings to the council. So you could just sort of highlight what your role is currently with TWC.
Sure, I'm a program specialist with TWC. I'm part of Aaron Wilder's team with transition. And so we went through kind of a reorg, Tracy, kind of like you guys did. And so Jennifer's position with neurodevelopmental disabilities moved over to Aaron's team. So, typically many of the individuals that we work with are youth that are on the spectrum and have IDD. And so, although we do have several adults as well that, kind of missed getting that diagnosis. So our focus in working with them falls under WIOA and providing them services so that they can be more successful in achieving their post-secondary goals. So I'll still be working with many of the providers that Jennifer, I think she brought on like 18 new providers during her tenure with us, and still partnering with the colleges and universities to, better serve youth with disabilities and adults as well. Jennifer was always like, don't forget the adults. And I promised her I wouldn't. So that's my role. And Jennifer was kind of a standalone. And now that we had our reorg, I now have a team of other specialists that I'm working with. And luckily I still have Erin as my manager. So I lucked out. It was a win-win. So I'm excited to be part of this initiative. Ashley, Jennifer has very big shoes to fill and a lot of energy. So I'm hoping that that I can bring the same amount of knowledge and support to this council. So thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. So next on our agenda is the consideration of our April 29th meeting minutes. I know that Waylon sent those earlier this morning, so I hope that there was an opportunity for y'all to review. I just need a motion to approve the April 29th, 2022 Advisory Council for Post-Secondary Education for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So can I have a motion?
This is Vicki Mitchell, and I move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Vicki. Can I have a second?
I second. This is Christine Price.
Thank you, Christine. Can I have a vote? So all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Does anyone abstain? Does anyone say nay? Minutes are approved. Thank you, guys. Next on our agenda is a discussion of our accessibility reports. So I wanted to provide you all with sort of an update from me as far as what my work has been on our accessibility report. So the Finance Committee has been dissolved. So the committee chairs have now been directed to include a financial component for any applicable recommendations in their section. If you were a part of the Finance Committee, please consider supporting the other committee chairs in identifying any financial considerations to include in their sections. I am also available and willing to support the financial component however I can, just so we're able to identify the things that would benefit from some money being appropriated to them. As far as committee membership goes, I just want to provide a reminder to all members of the Advisory Council that they are required to serve on at least one committee. Your involvement in a committee is as important as ever as we are rapidly approaching the deadline and finish line for our accessibility report. So please serve on a committee and provide your valuable experience. That's why you're here. It's a big part of what this council was established to do. And so your involvement is very important. Also, I just want everyone to keep in mind that even people who do not serve on the Advisory Council can be invited to committee meetings to provide subject matter expertise or a presentation on important topics. And so the wonderful thing about this Advisory Council is that our members have incredible networking skills and an incredible network of professionals and experts to tap into. So don't be afraid to sort of bring out your Rolodex or your email contact list or whatever during your committee meetings to really bring an additional perspective to topics that are important for our report if needed. I have also sent out a template for committees to use for authoring their report. And then that template has also been updated to include sort of a table that will improve our ability to track the progress of different recommendations. I want to say a big thank you to Beth for the suggestion of our including this table to better track the progress that this advisory council is making. I think that us being able to say who would be responsible for implementing the different recommendations that we're putting forth is a big asset and something that we'll be continuously able to follow up on in future years, so that this report is ultimately more impactful. Another update is that I have now asked the committee chairs to send a draft of their sections for their report to me by August 17th. This will provide me with enough time to review and work with each of the committee chairs on any edits that may be necessary. That way I can have a good solid draft to give to Waylon in a timely manner. That way he has enough time to route it through the necessary channels at the coordinating board. So August 17th, y'all, it's less than a month away. But based on the feedback that I've gotten from the committee chairs, they seem to think that that's doable. So there's gonna kind of be, I don't think it's gonna be too much of a crunch here. I'm really excited to see what we come up with. And I'm obviously available, and I want to be as supportive as I can as we wrap this report up this year. And then when we return, we can begin talking about outreach materials and developing really solid outreach materials to improve the accessibility of secondary education across the state. Also wanted to put two upcoming legislative hearings related to post-secondary education on y'all's radar. One is this next week, July 26th at 10 a.m. The House Public Education Committee is having a hearing to examine partnerships between K through 12 higher education and workforce. And I will just read off verbatim what it says. They are charged with examining partnerships between K through 12 higher education institutions and employers that promote post-secondary and career readiness and identify current obstacles that public schools, higher education institutions, and employers face. They're asked to make recommendations to ensure career and technical education programs, internships, apprenticeships, and other opportunities are more accessible. Hard for me to think of a more appropriate interim charge for this council to be interested in. So I will put a link to the hearing notice in the chat so that y'all can save it. If you look at the hearing notice, I want to just point out that Texas residents who wish to electronically submit comments related to this agenda item can do so without testifying in person. And so for those of y'all who are in Denton or Houston, it's not necessary for y'all to make the drive to Austin necessarily if you want to submit some electronic comments via their online portal that way. So the link to their online portal is in that hearing notice. And then just another one to put on your radar is August 11th at 10 a.m. There is a House Higher Education Committee hearing. The specific interim charges there are not as applicable to us, but there may be some interest. And so I'll go ahead and put the link to that hearing notice in there too, in case y'all want to get involved in some advocacy for that committee. And just a reminder, we are continuing to sort of limit the scope of these meetings to just talking about our accessibility reports and looking specifically at the policies and practices that impacts the accessibility of higher education or post-secondary education until our report is complete. And then once our report is complete, we will gather again and start talking more about the outreach materials that need to be improved or created by our group to improve accessibility. So for the next section of our discussion on the accessibility report, I wanted to provide the committee chairs an opportunity to discuss the status of their committee's work. As y'all probably noticed today, we have two of our committee chairs who are not able to make it, that them being Taylor Fiddler of the Outreach Committee and Jolene Sanders of the Special Topics and Postsecondary Committee. So I'll just give their updates for them. As far as Taylor's for the Outreach Committee, he said that their committee plans to meet next week again, and that they're going to review any additional input for their sections. Taylor and I spoke earlier this week, and he was very excited about the work that the Outreach Committee had done thus far. So thank y'all. I know that he's in Iowa. He had a member of the family who passed, and so I know he sends his regrets for not being here, but it does sound like that Outreach Committee is doing some great work. And then as far as Jolene Sanders, I think that she is in attendance for the parent-to-parent conference that Linda Litzinger's organization is putting on, and she's a presenter for that. As far as the Special Topics and Post-Secondary section, they're looking a lot at issues related to justice-involved youth and adults, as well as youth in foster care. I wanted to say, Sue, what you were bringing up earlier about the online classes being available, I think that that would be of a lot of interest to Jolene, because they're hoping to look for ways to expand access to online education for justice-involved youth. And now justice-involved youth can access Pell Grants, whereas they haven't been before. And they are also able to access tablets. And so the idea of having a program for students with IDD who can do online learning would probably be of big interest to Jolene and their committee. So you may want to share that with them, just making that connection.
Thank you. I definitely will. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
And next, let's hear from Vicki Mitchell regarding post-secondary outcomes.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you very much. The Outcomes Committee is Sue Maraska, Linda Litzinger, Brenda Barrio, Agatha Thibodeau, and we have one outside person, Dr. Christina Gashanis, who is also with the Sam Houston State University Garrett Center on Transition and Disability Studies. And one of the reasons why Christina will be involved in this is because her area of expertise is post-secondary programs for individuals with IDD, in addition to the fact that she actually has experience in 18+ adult transition programs in public schools, as well as having been in an administrative role over them. So she has two very unique specializations of the post-secondary side and the 18+ connection to it. For our committee, as Ashley knows, we've been a little bit late. My fault, not my committee's. It's been a really hectic summer, but one of the things that we were able to do was to collect our data, and with the help of Waylon, who involved Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board, Christina Zavala, I believe was her name, they provided copies of data that THECB collects. And so what we did is our first meeting at the beginning of the week, I put together a Google Drive folder with all of the data sets. And right now we're reviewing two different data sets. We're reviewing the data set from public education, which is from the State Performance Plan Indicator 14, which is post-school outcomes. And so we're looking at that data from the public schools and the connection to higher education. And then we are also looking at the THECB data from related to IDD and higher education. And Laura Villarreal, I'll be getting with you because I would love to see if TWC has some data, which my guess is that you probably do. It's the question of where it is. And so what my committee is doing, I put together a video just using a Zoom webinar link and explained all of what was in the Google Drive, and kind of everyone has an assignment that they're going through the data. Then they're going to try and identify if there's an additional data set that we need to consider. And I'd like to say to everyone that is in this meeting, who's in this meeting, if you know of a data set that deals with outcomes related to IDD and post-secondary education, or the connections that lead to it, like in our case, the state performance plan from the Texas Education Agency, please let us know so that we can consider all of this. And then we have our next meeting. Everybody will be looking at that. And then our next meeting is next Friday, the 29th at 1 o'clock, where we're going to go through the data, look at the guide, the template that Ashley gave us, and the guidance from Beth Stalvey, and then divide up who's going to do what. And so this is a little bit, the earlier, August 17th is a little bit earlier than what we had thought, but I told Ashley we would make it work, and I'm sure that we can, because we've got some amazing people who are on this committee. So that's kind of where we are at. And I'm too, I'm excited. I do believe we're going to come up with some really meaningful information for the Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board and recommendations. And I love the way that this particular report is being focused. I think it's going to be a very meaningful report.
Thank you for that, Vicki. And Beth, do you want to talk about post-secondary inclusion committee?
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. So I am reporting on the Inclusion Committee, and that our committee members are Ramonda, Sue, Sandy, and Elizabeth. And so thank you all for your work on this committee. We've met over this past quarter to talk about the specific recommendations. And so what we spent our time doing is looking at the recommendations that are in our report and kind of brainstorming about how we could take those next steps and implement those. And so, for example, we have 3 recommendations. One is to perhaps co-locate a staff member from Workforce Commission or Vocational Rehab on site with the Disability Services Department to be able to create greater access. And so we talked about, really, we had more questions than answers, but we have a plan to try to evaluate kind of how we might determine who could do that. And so if that is simply an assignment from Workforce or via our office, then we wanted to see how that might happen. We talked about maybe picking a couple of campuses to do that and collect data to see whether or not it would create greater access among students if they were sort of more physically accessible. Then we also talked about our recommendation for training and educational resources to better support students on campus. We talked about the teacher training avenues and kind of how we might be able to develop or interject some additional training for faculty on disability awareness and how they might better support students within the professional development tracks that all faculties go through. Again, I think we had more questions and research that we wanted to do to figure out exactly how we might recommend that be implemented. And then we talked about internships and paid employment and really trying to make students and faculty more aware of those opportunities. We also had a lot of discussion about our recommendations for occupational skills training in STEM and kind of talking about the difference in the STEM camps and how they're structured, and our STEM camps set aside, if you will, and developed specifically for individuals or students with developmental disabilities, and then to what extent are kind of our traditional STEM camps actually accessible to these students as well. So again, more questions that we wanted to investigate and learn about so that we can be very strategic about how we implement those. And if any of the committee members have anything else they'd like to add, that's sort of where we are with our recommendations.
Great, thank you, Beth. Another thing that I wanted to bring up regarding our report is I was really hoping that we could have a section in our report that would include stories that highlight the importance of post-secondary education for persons with IDD. And I ideally would be generating these stories from our student members and or our college program members. Unfortunately, today I'm seeing that we don't have any of our student members in attendance, and so I will be reaching out to them individually. But nonetheless, I wanted to sort of open it up and see if, you know, some of the college programs that are in attendance today have students sort of that come to mind that would be willing to share a story of how important, you know, access to post-secondary education has been to them. I don't imagine this has to be a, you know, like a novel or anything. I'm not looking for like a short story, but maybe a paragraph of just sort of what it's meant to them. So are students coming to mind for y'all? Yeah, so can I sort of have a show of hands for volunteers that I can follow up with after this meeting? So Vicky, so basically everyone. Okay, great. So yeah, it doesn't have to be anything very long, but I think that, you know, we can of course have all of this great data and kind of wonky language, but really bringing the human side of this issue up in our report, I think will make it more compelling, and just to really highlight some stories of success and impact of what post-secondary education means to students with IDD. So, great, thank you, Sandy. So I'm looking forward to seeing what those stories can be, that if, and if, you know, how quickly y'all can gather them by August 17th. I really appreciate it. And then next up, I just wanted to share that I have generated some word clouds as sort of a product of our discussion that we had last time regarding our vision and our purpose and what success would look like. And so if y'all will allow me, I just kind of wanted to share these with you today because I think that they're kind of cool. Let's see here if I can get that to load. And then put that there. Okay. So this is our vision word cloud. And the words that stick out to me when I look at the words on this word cloud, awareness. I think that that very much is in line with what we keep talking a lot about. It's like we just need to have more awareness everywhere. So outreach committee, I hope you're listening. No. And that we want things to be meaningful. We want to have acceptance. And so this is our vision word cloud. My plan for this is to come up with a pretty succinct sentence or two for us to include in our report as far as what our vision is. And so definitely, I think using the word awareness and success and making things meaningful will be a part of that ultimate vision. And then as far as our purpose, what I love about this one is like the biggest word is students. And then maybe like the second biggest word is individuals. And so to me, I kind of love it because it shows that our advisory council is just so focused on the student and so focused on the individual, and that ultimately, we really feel like that is what our purpose is. Post-secondary is obviously a big word in here. Barriers, addressing barriers. So this will help me generate sort of what our purpose is and encapsulate that with our report. And then last but not least, I have this as sort of a trophy shape. So these are all of this is the word cloud generated from our discussion on what success would look like in Texas. I think the biggest word we see here is programs. So obviously we want programs, we want successful programs. I'm looking at it and I see quality is on here, recommendation, included is another large word in this word cloud. So if you aren't familiar with word clouds, generally the size of the word within the cloud is an indication of the frequency of that word being used in our discussion. And so obviously we have words like meaningful, we're seeing that again here, solutions, credentials, advocacy, outcomes. I love it. And so this is what success would look like to us. So all of these things are going to go into our introduction of the report to sort of better define what this advisory council is all about. So for discussion, I wanted to see if, just based on those word clouds, if there was like any red flag thing that was missing in y'all's view.
I absolutely love them. In fact, I took pictures because I was like, I love that idea. And I want to print them and put them like, so that's like my motivation when we're working on our report. So that's why I took pictures. I didn't see any words that stuck out that were missing. I just wanted to add that I absolutely love the idea. So thank you for putting those together, Ashley.
Thank you, Christine. And I'm happy to email the actual image to you too.
Oh, yay.
I can send that out following our meeting.
Thank you, please.
So do members have any other discussion items for our next meeting that they'd like to bring forth now?
I have a question that maybe we could cover at the next meeting. What is our latest list of all the programs in Texas that we provide to parents when they ask? And do we have it posted online anywhere?
Hi, Linda, I'll speak on that. That was part of my announcements. We will be sending out a survey anytime at this point to start our new recruitment survey that we send out every year. So that will be going out and it'll probably wrap up about a month from now. And then because I have to submit a report on that as well to the board. So I have to have that done by the end of September. So we'll have that. But, you know, we did our extensive list as well. And I've been working with TWC on a few things with their list that they are providing. So we do have a couple of lists out there. And once we get those updated, we'll have those posted on our website.
Okay, thank you. And if we wanted to give one to a parent now, what do you think is the best single list right now? Is it TWC's or where does
it'll probably be, I'll have to refer to ours on our website because
okay.
that's the data that we collect. TWC's, it highlights their programs that they support with the with funding and those sort of things as well. So we want to make sure that we include all those that have with us as well. So.
Thank you. And I'll get with you if I can't find ours on the site.
And you can look at our report as well from last year.
Okay.
We had a large list of programs included in that as well.
Okay. And they're about the same.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Linda, another, it's not from the state of Texas, but I think College also has a wonderful website and filters to look through. Waylon, on the note of the recruitment survey, I'm wondering if in the future we can talk about the timeline for that, because I think that it would really benefit this council to maybe have that information in our report. So have access to that information when we're drafting it, instead of it coming out after us finalizing our report.
Right.
So maybe we can look at the timeline for that
okay.
in future meetings.
Sounds good.
Sue, I see you have your hand raised.
Sorry. Yes, Vicky actually wrote in the chat what I was going to ask, but Waylon, I know there's always that question as to who is this going to, especially when you have large, institutions like HCC. It doesn't always, and then there's maybe some turnaround. We want to make sure who is it going to, but I think for those of us that have a program that are on the, for example, it would be nice on this committee, I'm talking about those on the committee that have a program, if we could be CC'd somehow, or at least notified when this goes out and who it went to, so then we can follow up with that person at our institution, because sometimes they'll get it and they don't even know what this is about. And I want to be able to reach out and make sure they're prepared and they're ready, because normally they're going to send it to me anyway to fill out. So I just wanted to make sure, that we're aware of who it's going to and when. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll take the same approach as I did last year. We sent out a Gov delivery to all the presidents at the institutions, and they typically share it amongst their appropriate representative at the institution. I'll also contact those representatives that had submitted the survey last year that was a part of that. And I'll also include anyone that's on a campus, college campus within our council. I'll let you all know as well, so y'all can make those connections. So those are the three avenues I typically take to ensure that we're trying to ensure you all are being represented with your programs.
Vicki, did you have your hand raised?
It was to ask the same question, and I decided to put it in the chat because those surveys can get lost.
Brenda?
Yeah, hi, Ashley. Just curious, does the report ever include any additional information of what is going on in other states, or, at the federal level, or just national data in general? Not that we want to compare, our state to others, but there's some really great things that other states are doing. Also at the national level, there's a lot of data and reporting. I just got back from the TIPSEED grant meeting, so I was able to be around other inclusive postsecondary programs that are funded. So we were able to really chat about the different initiatives that our states are really trying to embrace, especially for inclusive postsecondary education.
Brenda, if you wanted to work together on coming up with something, I would be open to that for this. And whether or not it's something that we want to include in sort of each section, or if we want it to maybe be an appendix, I mean, we can talk about that. But I do think that there would be tremendous value in sort of showing what other states have done and what other states are having success with.
Sounds good. Yeah, I will absolutely love that. There's some new legislation that have just passed, for example, in Alabama, Kentucky, and so on. So some of closer states that I think would be very interesting to either mirror or just look at to see how we can either include in the report or just have something completely aside. So yeah.
Yeah, let's touch base on that.
Okay.
I love that idea.
Cool.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I can see potential for that in every section of the report. I would highly recommend it not go into the appendix because so many people never get to the appendix. If we want to be sure it's seen, we need to include it in the report.
Yeah, I was just gonna speak. I believe this was brought up last time with our report, but we never just came around to it. And there may be a couple of highlights or mentions in those additional considerations about national and other regional efforts or initiatives taking place, but I never think we made it a priority. So I definitely like that, Brenda. Bring it to the table if we can fit it in this go round. That's cool. And next, as soon as we get done with this report, that may be another committee that we can stand up maybe for the next report to start thinking about what we're doing or in comparison to the national scale as well. So great point.
What other ideas do we have?
I think that one of the things that is very important for us to do is to be sure that we're connecting it with initiatives and efforts that are already being made. You know, for example, there is the 60 by 30, and we think of it in terms of the higher education, but public school, Texas Education Agency is also responsible for that. And they look at that under the college career military readiness and also the outcome bonuses. And one of the things that Ashley and I talked about in our meeting was when we're making recommendations to look at ways that we can encourage organizations and agencies that already have this as part of their mission and figure out a way that they can collaborate together in order to increase the positive outcomes. Because right now, from my perspective, and I could be wrong, it appears that everyone is somewhat in silos as opposed to a continuum of one to the other. And I think that if there's a way within this report, especially in the outcomes committee, for us to figure out a way where we can bring all of this together to improve the outcomes. And then on top of that are the additional recommendations, but together it would be more powerful. And a good example, seeing Beth Stalvey right here, a very good example is a project that the DD Council has partnered with the Texas Education Agency to do. And so the Garrett Center is going to be very involved in helping to conduct a landscape review of the 18+ adult transition programs throughout the state of Texas. And a big focus of that is, are these 18+ programs connected to post-secondary ed? And if so, in what way? And not only that, but within the curricular content and the activities, instructional activities, is anything being done to help prepare students and connect students to post-secondary ed? And that is very different than whether or not you actually have a partnership with the post-secondary ed and help students become a student there. Over on one side, you're looking at, you don't just send them, you need to prepare them. Then you have to have the collaborative arrangement. And then you have to have the activities and the support system, which is the funding and the transportation and all of that. And that's just one example of a partnership of how that would facilitate the improved outcomes that the THECB is looking for, but it starts with the public school. And I'm sure that we can look at many entities that have, aligned or very similar purposes and missions.
That's great points, Vicki. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the outcomes committee comes up with. I just think that the discussions that you've talked about just sound so interesting and important. So. Sandy?
Hi, thanks. So I just wanted to say too, I love both of my committees. I'm working with Beth and Sue, and I'm working with Jolene and Linda and several others. And one thing that I found, because I don't have it all, but I have lots of people, and I don't know how much we've utilized the ESC staff potentially for resources. I was able to gather a ton of resources from our counseling and our CTE representatives that I work side by side with at Region 10. So just wanted to just put that out there too. Additional resources at any education service center. There are people that really specialize in that. And so we're going to glean some information that they shared with us to help create our reports and make sure that they're complete, but just didn't want those individuals outside of just the transition person to be forgotten, because they have a wealth of information.
Sandy, that brings to mind a question for me. I know that, I think it maybe is Region 10, but one ESC is responsible for the development of the transition and employment guide. Is that still Carla Johnson?
So Carla Johnson used to be the state lead for transition until 3 years ago, when that grant was given to Sam Houston State University and Dr. Vicki Mitchell in the Garrett Center.
Okay.
And so 2018 was the first transition and employment guide. We have just rolled out that purple book right behind Vicki Mitchell's shoulder is the 2021 version of the Texas Transition and Employment Guide. It is culminated with stakeholder input from several places. I am going to tell you, it's a fantastic book. I am going to tell you one other thing. Elizabeth Danner at Region 13 will not tell you that she was the one that took all of those pieces, parts, and created something beautiful. So I will say that out loud, but it is a product of the Texas Transition Network. And so it is a culmination of stakeholder input from all over the state.
I was fortunate enough to participate in the creation of probably 2018s. And I remember at the time pushing for post-secondary education to really be a larger part of that guide. So I'm happy to hear that now it's in Vicki's hands, and Elizabeth is great. So. Yes,
and there is an entire section on college. There's an entire section on career. If you haven't gone and seen it, I'll drop the link in the chat so you can go directly to it. It's now, I mean, the languages that we're adding just continue. We have Korean, Vietnamese, Spanish, Chinese. The ASL version is about to roll out. It's going to be a continued project, so more people have access to it. So we're super proud of it.
Like you should be. Thank you. So next up on the agenda, we have announcements. So just wanting to invite y'all to share any activities or announcements in relation to you being a council member. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Does that mean we don't have any announcement? Okay, that's fine.
Ashley, I think it's well, Sue, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I made an announcement early, but I wasn't sure if we hadn't started the meeting yet, so I'm not sure if everybody was present when I was talking about that. But I did send in the chat box our flyer for our fall online cohort, because we now at HCC Vast Academy are offering an online cohort, and this is our second year now. And so we are able to serve students that are not necessarily living in the Houston area. So we wanted to get the word out that, you know, students across Texas or even out of the state can attend our online cohort. We're still very small, so we don't have space for a whole lot of students right away, but I think that this is area of room for growth for us because we've seen success. We've already had success with our students online, and we see that there's those out there that want that prefer the online. So we really want to kind of get the word out that we do have an online cohort now, in addition to our on-campus program. So just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. And we also have our CTP financial aid. This is going to be our second year now. More of our students are applying for FAFSA and getting financial aid. So we're excited about that. And I think those are the main two announcements that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Anyone else? Okay, well, not seeing anyone else interest, we are at the Waylon, did you have any announcements?
Yeah, I was just gonna reiterate, like, kind of like the time frame of how we're moving forward with the report. As just know the sending your report to Ashley on the 17th, it gives us a couple weeks to try to tighten that up, format it to submit to the board so we can route it through our processes. Typically, they start asking everything by the end of August. So anything after that runs the risk of not being accepted, but we'll do our due diligence just like we did 2 years ago and getting things in, you know, at the last minute, but making sure it was good enough for our submission and reaching the board in time. So thank you all for the hard work that y'all have been doing and will continue to do. With that, hopefully you all are okay with your committee leads approving whatever you recommend and leaving good faith in Ashley have the best interest of the council to submit the final project or report. I'm sure she will be sending it out as soon as we put everything together and those sort of things, but we may not have an official meeting before then. So I just want us to acknowledge and understand that because the timeline is really short unless there's an issue or something we need to vote on to vote on as a council to accept to move forward, then we can consider that as well during that time frame. The board meeting is scheduled and calls meeting where we'll do our first report to be approved is October 26th. And the board meeting is October 27th. So those are the 2 days that we will be submitting that for board's approval from that. So if we want, we could probably schedule another meeting, you know, the week after or something, just to talk about everything, how everything went, the final recommendations, everything from that point. So maybe November 4th. Ashley, I'll let you take some time to kind of look through that, what dates may work best for you, and we'll send that out for everyone from there. And based on our engagement over the next couple weeks, I'll let Ashley again decide if we need to call another official meeting or not at the last minute for any other reasons that may be needed for the report itself. So, and that's all I had at this time.
Thank you, Waylon. I am feeling pretty confident that the committee chairs are going to be submitting really solid products for us to combine and to review and format and all of that stuff. So I don't really see a need to maybe call another formal meeting between now and then. I'm also open to feedback. Well, feel free to connect with me offline if you have feedback on that. But considering I don't think we have any additional business to discuss for today's council meeting, I'm wondering if I can have a motion to adjourn this meeting of the advisory council.
I move that we adjourn.
Vicki
Mitchell.
Thank you. And can I have a second? So if you can just come off mute.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, well, the meeting is now adjourned at 11:20 a.m. I appreciate all of your participation and attendance to today's meeting. And yeah, I will be sending over those images and connecting with you, Brenda, so we can discuss that sort of section of the report further. So y'all stay as healthy as you can and as cool as you can out there. And appreciate all of your hard work.
Yes. Thank y'all. Yes. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.